This is Docere Digest Podcast, breaking down health concepts. This podcast is brought to you by Docere Life Center. This innovative clinic is finding new solutions to the evolving challenges mankind faces in the 21st century. By utilizing cutting-edge technology and testing, they find root causes and also offer treatment with energy and nutrition. What is the mission? To dynamically change lives for the better while impacting families for generations. The information shared directly or indirectly in the Docere Digest podcast is not to be understood as or misconstrued as medical advice. This information is not a replacement for your current health provider who is acutely aware of your current health state and course of treatment. Any information shared about a product or service discussed by any host or guest on this podcast is not to be interpreted as a doctor-patient relationship.
When we traded the open air for comfort, we made a deal we didn't realize. We build homes that keep the weather out, which is great, but it also keeps some things in, like the air, the dust, the moisture, and the mold. For centuries, people lived with open windows, wood-burning stoves, and drafty walls. It wasn't always comfortable, but their homes could breathe. The wind moved through, bringing in fresh air and often taking moisture out, while the sun reached corners of the house that we now keep closed off. Then came insulation, drywall, carpet, sealed windows, and central air. We gained comfort, but we lost something vital: balance. The natural exchange of air, light, and life that once kept mold, moisture, and microbes in check. And by sealing our homes tight, we disrupted the balance that creation was designed to maintain. You see, mold outside is a part of God's design. It returns nutrients to the soil so new life can grow. But when that same organism moves indoors, it becomes a threat to both your home and your health. Because mold doesn't know the difference between the branches outside and the drywall inside. It's the same demolition crew doing the same job, but it's doing it in the wrong place. And what supports new life in a forest slowly steals life from the home. And what feeds the soil outside may slowly begin feeding on you. I think what surprises most people is they assume that because mold is natural and it's been around forever, that it's harmless, which actually for the most part it is when it's outdoors where it belongs. But the moment it sets up inside, it can become a serious threat to our home and our health. You might notice it in subtle ways at first. Maybe your breathing feels heavier at home, or you wake up foggy and anxious even after a full night's sleep. Or maybe you just feel better outside, but worse the moment you come back inside. That's not just in your head. It's your body responding to something in the air, something unseen, but absolutely real. And once mold becomes an indoor intruder, it's not just about musty smells or stained walls. It's about what's being released into the air you breathe and how that exposure quietly reshapes your health. So in this video, we're going to dive deeper. We're going to go past the basics, and we're going to look at the most common types of mold, both outdoors and indoors. We're going to look at the conditions they love, where they hide, and how each one affects your body in a different way. Because not all molds behave the same, and understanding which type you're dealing with helps you know where to look, what to change, and how to protect yourself. So let's start outside where mold belongs. If you've ever walked in the park or the woods after a good rain and caught that rich, earthy smell, you've met Cladosporium. It lives on bark, wooden fences, and fallen leaves. Now, for most people, this isn't really anything more than just an allergy trigger. Might cause a little bit of sneezing, a little bit of itching in the eyes, but it's usually not a serious health threat. Now, later in the summer and fall, we can often encounter alternaria. So warm, breezy afternoons will kick up spores from the plants and soil, and a lot of folks blame ragweed during this season, but often alternaria is a part of what's tickling your nose. Now maybe you peek into a compost pile or look in the corner of a garden bin. You might just see mucor. That's the soft, cottony white fuzz helping yesterday's scraps become tomorrow's soil. And every once in a while, you just might spot Epicoccum. This is an orange or yellow paint-looking mold that appears on dead vegetation. It's another small but important player, turning decay into nutrients. All of these molds have a job, and they're all part of the design to recycle nutrients back into the soil. Now, they don't usually cause us issues, though, because the environment keeps them in check. Wind will keep spores scattered, sun can slow down growth, rain can rinse off surfaces, and winter, that can be like a big reset button. See, nature keeps things in balance, which helps mold work over wider areas and limit areas of high concentration. Of course, there are exceptions. Spore concentrations can spike after heavy rains, when you rake piles of damp leaves, when you turn over compost, or even hiking near muddy creek beds or walking by stagnant puddles. With these higher exposures, even healthy people might feel a cough come on or feel drained for a day or two. But those that are more sensitive to mold might be struggling for days or even weeks. In general, though, outdoor molds aren't as much of a problem because outside, the air shifts and the balance restores itself. But again, when mold moves inside, that balance disappears. You see, when mold crosses your threshold, it loses nature's guardrails and it starts acting differently. So let's look at some of the most common suspects you'll find inside. First is Aspergillus. Now, if your home has central air, you've likely met this one, you just didn't know it. That's because HVAC systems create its favorite hangout. And once it settles in, every time the system kicks on, tiny fragments and spores ride the airflow into our bedrooms and our living spaces. And when we breathe it in, it can lead to stubborn sinus congestion, breathlessness that's hard to shake, persistent fatigue, and sensitivity to odors or chemicals. Next, let's look at Penicillium. Now, you may think that one sounds familiar, and that's because one strain of Penicillium was actually used to create the antibiotic penicillin. That doesn't mean this family of mold is friendly to us, though. Now, this one loves the cold and the damp. So think behind the refrigerator, under a perpetually damp sink, or even inside drywall that got wet and never fully dried. Now, this one spreads quickly and often gives off a sweet, musty odor. This leads to a nagging cough, head pressure, brain fog, or sleep that doesn't restore. So what about the most common one? This is the big bad black mold, Stachybotrys chartarum. So this one is a heavy hitter because it thrives so easily in our homes with our building materials. This is the one that we tend to see creeping up the drywall. It grows rapidly with constant moisture, darkness, and especially cellulose, which happens to be a major component of drywall, carpet backing, and paper-faced insulation. It tends to colonize where slow, hidden leaks occur. This is inside wall cavities, around window frames, and even beneath bathtubs. And this one can really affect us by causing burning eyes, joint pain, persistent headaches, and if it gets into the musculature and neurology, it can even cause muscle cramps and balance issues. This is one of the big ones that causes the "my brain isn't working" kind of days. Next up, let's look at black mold's best friend, Chaetomium. This one often teams up with black mold in places with long-standing water damage, such as older wallpaper paste, damp drywall, and old carpets. On top of black mold symptoms, this one often causes chronic sinus infections, intense facial pressure, postnasal drip, and even shedding of the hair from scalp inflammation. Last one on the list, let's look at Fusarium. So this one is less common, but it tends to show up after flooding or in very humid basements. It can also live on HVAC filters, houseplants, or carpet padding. This kind of mold often leads to skin irritation, sore throats, and immune reactivity, especially if you already battle allergies or autoimmunity. So as we can see, mold is not our friend when it moves into our home. These are all fairly common issues though, because all of these molds feast on modern materials like drywall, carpet, particle board, and insulation. Once they start digesting those, they share the space with you via the air, and your body begins to feel like it lives in a slow demolition zone. Now, it isn't just the mold itself that causes us problems. Some of the worst effects on us are caused by the chemicals that mold releases. Those chemicals are called mycotoxins. These dangerous toxins are invisible, lightweight, and often potent. and they are released by mold into the air where they float through vents, cling to fabrics and paper, and soak into porous materials. Now, when these toxins get inside you, many of them will actually bind to fats and proteins, which allows them to circulate throughout the body, even to the immune system, the liver, and the brain. Think of them like a toxic exhaust, but instead of being from a mechanical engine, they're from a biological engine. Now, different molds will make different toxins, but a lot of them tend to create the same kind of problems. They inflame tissues, they confuse your immune system, they may even disrupt hormones, and they can drain cellular energy. The worst out of the bunch are the aflatoxins. These come specifically from the Aspergillus flavus and Aspergillus parasiticus strains. They are particularly dangerous because of how they stress the liver and how they interfere with DNA repair. This allows this toxin to even be carcinogenic. Now, as the liver is stressed, detoxification slows, which can lead to you feeling heavy and tired. And also, as the liver is overloaded, some people may notice jaundice, which is that yellowish tinge that can occur to the eyes or even to the skin. Another mycotoxin from the Aspergillus species, as well as the Penicillium species, is ochratoxin A. This toxin tends to target kidneys and brain, but even worse, it can even damage mitochondria, which is where your food substrates are converted into energy. This will lead to those mornings where you feel like you're waking up in a cement suit. You have that hard to wake, gotta kind of slide out of bed feeling. It can also lead to pretty significant headaches. Now, besides being able to thrive on most modern building materials, black mold, the Stachybotrys chartarum, as well as Fusarium, also release toxins called trichothecenes. These toxins can have a pretty profound impact on us because they are protein synthesis blockers. Now, this means they will literally stall your body's ability to repair itself. And that's why you get deep fatigue, widespread pain, even burning or sensitivity to light and sound, and that inflamed from the inside feeling. We see a lot of patients dealing with this one because black mold is so common in our homes and our workspaces. Another toxin that really weakens our immune system is gliotoxin, which is found in Aspergillus fumigatus. This toxin wants to stick around because it hinders white blood cell activity in the body, which is a key component of our immune system's ability to fight off infections. That makes it harder to get rid of, but it also keeps your immune system in a weakened state. All right, so let's look at another mycotoxin that has some really unusual effects. This is from the mold Fusarium, the toxin known as zearalenone. This one is really unusual because it acts like estrogen. Now, this can lead to hormonal imbalance, it can lead to fertility impairment, and even carcinogenic hormone-dependent diseases. Now, although this tends to be more pronounced in females, the estrogenic properties of this toxin can also have a pretty dynamic effect on males. So these are some of the most common toxins that we see, but there are hundreds of mycotoxins out there that can cause a wide array of symptoms. So as we were talking about the difference between outdoor and indoor molds, it really makes me think of one of my patients. So she is a mom in her early 30s with 2 boys at home. Her symptoms affected her mood, leaving her more irritable than usual. It affected her energy, leaving her with severe fatigue, and it even caused severe movement issues because of muscle spasms. And at times it was so bad that she could barely even walk. One time she came in after going on a trip to Colorado with her family, and she mentioned that she actually felt really good on the trip, but soon after coming home, everything just crashed again. Now that contrast was a clue. Because of that, she did some testing on her home. We were able to figure out that mold was a big part of what she was dealing with. Now, it wasn't the only factor in her case, but it was definitely an extra burden that was keeping her body from healing. So once it was addressed, she made significant improvements in her overall health. So we can see that when mold moves in with us, things can get pretty bad if we let it. With that in mind, let's look at some simple and doable things that you can start doing today to tip the balance back in your favor. First off, air out the house on a regular basis. Once or twice a week, if weather is permitting, open up windows, preferably on opposite sides of the house. This allows for cross ventilation, it allows fresh air to go in and stagnant air to go out. Do this for at least 30 minutes, but going up to an hour or two would be better. Speaking of air moving, let's keep that flowing. So if you have rooms that feel stuffy, make sure you have a ceiling fan or portable fan on. If your bathroom has a fan installed in it, run it for 20 to 30 minutes after baths and showers. If you have an air purifier, place it where you spend the most time, such as the bedroom or workspace, and let it run. Let's also let light in. Open blinds daily. If a room is always dark, give it a sun break by letting the light spill in. Another important aspect is to dry moisture quickly. So anytime there's dampness, obviously with the bath and the shower, but also after cooking or even dishwashing, make sure you crack a window for a few minutes. Also, don't leave wet towels or rugs in a heap on the floor. Make sure if you can't use them in the dryer, make sure they are hung to air dry and for that moisture to be able to kind of drip off of them. Also, make sure you do kind of some routine maintenance on your HVAC system. Changing filters on schedule, keeping vents unclogged by furniture and drapes, and even setting the fan to run for 10 to 15 minutes midday to circulate air through the filter. Many thermostats even have a fan-only option. So finally, listen to your body's map. Notice where you feel best and where you feel worst. If a certain room always makes you feel tired or foggy, treat that as data and give that space extra air and light until you can investigate more. These aren't going to be the whole solution, but they can often shift the environment toward balance, and that alone can lower your daily exposure. Now, mold can hide behind so many faces: fatigue, anxiety, brain fog, hormonal shifts, and even pain that moves around your body. In my practice, I help people connect those dots. Where exposure began, which systems are most affected, and most importantly, how to rebuild from the inside out. Just know that you don't have to navigate this alone. And once the intruder is cleared and your body's balance is restored, healing isn't just possible, it's what your body was designed to do. So here's what I want you to walk away with today. When mold gets indoors, it concentrates and circulates. What's natural outdoors becomes harmful inside because it gets trapped and it gets shared with every breath. Also, the species or type of mold matters because different molds prefer different hiding places and they drive different symptom patterns. Knowing where they live can help you find them. Now, most importantly, balance is the goal with prevention. Fresh air, light, movement, and drying the dampness tip the environment back toward health. As you start to connect dots and recognize patterns with mold, make sure to look carefully at your life for any hidden clues that mold may be lurking. Also, share this with someone else who might be going through those similar patterns. And remember, the easiest sign to recognize is if they feel better outside than at home. That contrast just might be the clue they need to start down the path of healing. I hope you will keep walking this road with me as we continue to go from confusion to understanding and even to freedom. Please like the video, subscribe, and make sure you turn on notifications so you can see the next video. Next time, we're going inside the body. We're going to look at how these exposures translate into brain fog, anxiety, sleep disruption, hormone swings, and immune chaos, and the first steps that can start turning that tide. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Docere Digest podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. You can also find all the episodes and show notes over at docerelifecenter.com. While you're on the website, also be sure to check out the blog where you'll find videos and articles to help you proactively rebalance your health.